there's so many components to this, and you call it a scandal, and I think that's the right word. We had, you know, we had this once before in American history. It was Woodrow Wilson. We don't really even know to this day exactly what happened. Um, Usually it said he had a stroke. He may have also had been debilitated by the flu virus,
Right.
the COVID of the time, 1918 influenza. But he was not, his capacity was greatly reduced. And his wife, Edith Wilson, controlled access to him in a very stark way. And, before White Houses had big chief of staffs. And it wasn't really clear who the president was. We wouldn't think 100 years later you could have that again. We're in the television age, we're in the internet age. Joe Biden was not incapacitated physically in the way Wilson was.
Right.
He gave a speech. He spoke. He gave remarks on New Year's Day in the evening after this attack in New Orleans, and was didn't take any questions, but he was cogent. He's there. He's not a zero. He's not a vegetable, but he's diminished from what he was. And so the question, one of the questions it raises is, well, has he been running the country, or has it been these other people? And if so, who? And by what right do they have to do that? So that's the question. And what your column explores is the role of the media in, instead of exposing this, sort of covering it up. Is that too strong a term?
No, I think they absolutely were, and the greatest evidence for that is that I don't think the Wall Street Journal story was any surprise to people who read uh, many of the links at Real Clear Politics, stories that we've written at Real Clear Investigations. This was not a secret that this man was diminished, and certainly when he was forced out of the race after his bumbling and stumbling, to put it nicely, debate performance. I mean, he was removed from the ticket because of his diminished capacity, not because of his policies,
That's right.
not
And, and,
whatever.
he, and he was pressured, and it was clear then that there was a problem. Peter, I wanted to ask you a question. As far as I know, I could be mistaken. Correct me if I am. I do not think Kamala Harris has held a press conference to this day, but she was chosen as the nominee. And I think the question
Right.
she was afraid of having to answer, she gave some interviews to friendly outlets. But what a tough, hard-boiled, what we used to call ink-stained wretch, ink-stained
Right.
wretch, like you and me would have asked her is, Madam Vice President, are you sitting here telling the American people today that you learned something on June 27th that you didn't know before? That's the question, and
Right.
whatever form. She was never really asked that question. She was finally asked it in a kind of roundabout way, and she dodged it. But so, was Kamala Harris? We don't think she was making policy. Was it the White House Chief of Staff? Was it Jill Biden? Was it a consortium of these people? These are questions that need to be asked and answered. But
So,
but
right.
but I want to ask about your point. The point of your column is very interesting because it's the role of the media. And I covered the White House for 15 years. We have a reporter there now, Phil Wegman. He's
Right.
he's very diligent, but it's hard to get access. It's hard to, you know, it is hard to know what was going on. And from my standpoint, what bothered me the most wasn't that we didn't get this story. Maybe this story wasn't gettable.
Right.
Maybe you suggest they were trying hard enough, but I'll grant you that. But even if you were, the Wall Street Journal did another story earlier, I think in the summer, about this.
They did.
It was more speculative. They had some sources. They'd interviewed people who talked to Biden, and Biden was in and out. Some people yeah, he's pretty good. He was lucid. Other people said, no, he wasn't. So the picture that emerged gradually was a guy who was every bit his 82 years of age. And some days he had good days and some days he didn't. Some days he was with it, some days he wasn't, but he was diminished from what he had been before. But
100%. I
but
mean,
what
and
but
I'll,
what bothered me, and I
right.
want to ask you about
Yeah.
this. I don't mean to
No.
take all your time here, Peter, is it wasn't just that reporters didn't get that story and nail it down. It was that people who raised the issue were attacked by other journalists.
Oh, exactly. They're deeply complicit. They have totally revealed that they are partisan, and we have so many instances of that. We have the Robert Mueller RussiaGate hoax. We have the Hunter Biden laptop. We have the coverage of Hunter Biden's sweetheart deal with David Weiss. All of these things that are just juicy political stories. And that was one of the things I wanted to just mention, in my column was, I mean, this is a great story. How and when the people around Biden decide to slowly take power from him. How did that unfold? It is a fantastic story. And the people at the Post and the Times and NPR, they are terrific reporters. They could get this story if they wanted it. And so I would say that they didn't get it is an egregious indictment. And I think all the people who were covering the White House that covered this up and their editors, need to be held account. But I think they now have an opportunity to make some amends. Do I think it's going to reverse the historic low trust in legacy media? No, I don't.
You know what? It might help. If the Washington Post did the kind of story you're talking about, and certainly they have the horses to do it.
They do.
I think people, conservatives would have to grudgingly admit, okay, they did it. It was too late. It was a little late, but they did it. They finally did it. And I agree with you. I think that would be a they gave all these Pulitzers to these phony stories about
Right.
Russiagate. They give one for that.